Hi, everybody. It's Lisa Derby Oden, Project Development Coordinator at MassMEP, and I have the pleasure of being with my good friend and previous cube mate neighbor, Karen Myhaver. How are you today, Karen?
I'm doing good. Living the dream.
Living the dream. I love
Living
it.
the dream.
So, I know that you've been with MassMEP for a while now. And so you have a lot of our tribal knowledge and that kind of thing. But can you tell us what your role is here at MassMEP right now? What are you up to these days?
Well, my business card says that I am manufacturing your career coordinator. I actually came up with that title because that is that's what I am focused on right now. That is doing outreach to various educational facilities, students, and a lot of career consultants and guidance counselors and things like that that would be guiding young people in their career choices. So that's what I'm focused on, educating them about manufacturing and manufacturing careers.
So is there a age range that you're focused on?
Everybody, anybody and everybody. I love the little kids too. We don't do much with them at this point in time, but I think that's a great age to start. And I think I'm going to try to get more involved with the younger kids once we get back to some sort of a normalcy again.
And so you work with, you were saying, like guidance counselors and teachers, and do you work with the students themselves?
Yes, most definitely. I again, when it's a normal thing, I go to a lot of different schools and make presentations. I have continued doing that virtually throughout the summer, been involved in many different projects where I was still, a guest speaker or whatever, and doing presentations that way. Not nearly as many as I would in person, but, and I'm actually starting to fill up my schedule with some engagements coming up. So things are looking up.
Can you give us a little bit of the background about why it's so important to have this role and this outreach to
Yeah.
younger people and students and stuff?
Well, the funny thing is, not funny, humorous. The way this all sort of evolved for MassMEP and for me, back probably 12 years ago now, Barry Bluestone did this report indicating the fact that if manufacturers weren't careful, everything was going to fall apart because there were going to be a horrible shortage in manufacturing employees, especially more people like machinists, people who had more experience, because a lot of people were going to be retiring, and for some reason as a society we had decided that those jobs weren't worth sending our young people into, that they still had the stigma of being old, dirty, places that aren't healthy or not good to work in, don't pay well. So anyway, the reporting came out, and at that point, sort of our workforce group started forming because we realized we needed to start educating people, young people, about their opportunities, about these different areas that they could go into. They didn't call it STEM then because STEM came, but I mean, all these different focuses that where they could use college education, where they could grow and they could become engineers and everything, because that is manufacturing. I like to say STEM is where manufacturing is where STEM goes to work, because that's where you put it to use, all those science, technology, engineering, mathematics. So like I said, back then it became a focus. We're not going to have any clients to work with unless those clients can stay in business, and they won't stay in business if they don't have employees. So it became almost a necessity for us to start reaching out to people. And as you know from your history here, we tried a lot of unemployed people and H-1B, people who were unemployed and people who just were underemployed. We worked with all different agencies to reach out to those groups of people first, and had great success placing a lot of them in manufacturing jobs. So.
Yeah, that's great to give the backdrop of that, I think. So you're really sort of germinating the seeds for the pipeline, right?
Yes, the little seeds, the little sprouts.
Yeah, the little sprouts. All righty. Well, that's great. So maybe you can tell us about how you found your way to MassMEP and maybe a little bit more about what your career path has been.
How long you got?
We'll take the cliff notes.
All right. See. Let's go with education first. That was easier. Educationally, from the time I was a little kid, I have always enjoyed art, creativity, and I always wanted to be an art teacher.
Yeah.
And I was blessed to be able to actually follow that career path. I was in teaching college to be able to be an early elementary art education specialist. And I was actually able to do some work with my teacher that inspired me so much. I was actually a student teacher in her class. And that was the second year I was in school. The third and fourth year I was in school, I was out doing a lot more student teaching, and Proposition 2.5 came up. And the very first things that Proposition 2.5 did was cut art and music. So the teachers who were teaching me how to teach art were losing their jobs. And I said, better rethink this. Funny side story was that while I was in college, I did some part-time work for a company called Thomas Net, and it was the Thomas Register. And that is a huge, it used to be hardbound catalogs of a lot of manufacturers and resources and suppliers. I did spec ads for them. And by spec ads, I mean, I hand drew ads and printed with my hands, handwriting ads for the salesman to go out and sell, hopefully to customers who would buy advertising in the publication. And one of the first things I remember seeing when I joined MassMEP were some of those hardbound catalogs in the office, because we used to use them. But anyway, things had gone to hell with the art teaching. And I have picked apples, I have waitressed, I have been a chambermaid. I was a lingerie buyer at a store in Falmouth when I lived on the Cape.
Ooh la la.
Ooh la la, exactly. There's more stories to that. That's for another day. And then one day I saw an advertisement for the Falmouth Enterprise newspaper. They were looking for advertising sales, and having had a taste of that when I was in college, I applied, and the rest is history. I spent a good 18, 19 years at various publications, depending on where I lived, but I was at Worcester Business Journal and the Worcester Magazine, and finally the last place I was one of the Stonebridge Press papers, was the Auburn News here in Auburn, where you pretend you are. Neither of us are there now. But, and the funny thing is, my path now here, this is the beginning of the story to my path to MassMEP. I was the sales and advertising manager for the Auburn News. And in that capacity, I often had people approach me who wanted free advertising. Enter Hilda Healy. That's Matt's grandmother. She's a sweetheart, but boy, you don't want to be on the wrong side of her. She knows her stuff, and anytime you want to have a committee that's successful, Hilda should be involved. I was in the position where I was able to give advertising to different organizations, and Hilda would always be asking me for free ads for the various things she was involved with. Well, fast forward, because this was early 2000s, fast forward a little while, and one day they decided to close up shop, that people had started reading newspapers online, so we were not going to have the newspaper anymore. And I went to a meeting that night with Hilda, and I told her, can't help you anymore, I'm not going to be involved in advertising anymore, I don't have a job anymore. And she handed me a business card and said, this is my husband's organization, you'd be a good fit, I'm sure there's something you can do there. So it was February school vacation, and I called the office, and I got Kathy Mahoney on the phone, and back then there were only a handful of people who worked there. And Kathy said that there might be a project I could do on a sort of a project work basis. I wasn't going to be hired, but they were going to try before they buy kind of thing. And as I had the great privilege of working under the great Jack Healy for many years. Jack is and was the MassMEP. There's nothing more to say. He's the reason that we all are still in the MassMEP, that he started the whole thing. So I came to work there, and for the first year, I became the guru of making telephone calls, which I hate, by the way, but telephone sales had been a big part of what I did before, and that's all I did for the first 9 months or so. Back in those days, MassMEP had a management company that oversaw us and 7 other centers. So I actually did work with Vermont, Connecticut, Maine, New Hampshire, Florida, Arizona, Sandia National Laboratories, and Massachusetts. So I would do, we called companies to get them involved in some, in a supply chain database. So I oversaw all the different states and gathered the information. And at the end of 9 months or so, I was not working for MassMEP. I was sort of an independent contractor, and I was still looking for a job for myself because I needed to. And I went and said that I had another job, and they said, well, we want to hire you. So I said goodbye to the other job, and I've been with MassMEP ever since, and in many different capacities. I have a collection of business cards, a lot of interesting titles. I even was, I sat at the front desk for a year answering the phones because we had lost a receptionist, so I played in the receptionist. But I've done all sorts of things. I worked with the administrative team. It's funny, I was mentioning those 7 or 8 different states I worked for. Back in the day, we actually did our NIST surveys and everything in handwriting. I had to write things down, forms. And when we moved from the old office to the new office, I had boxes and boxes of this stuff with all these, old things that I used to do. We used to have to physically call them and take down notes of what they said. And I developed a process, I called it the internal survey. And it was after you finish, like, you do a 101 or you do some sort of a 5S with a company, I would call shortly after that project was completed, because it's a good temperature gauge. You can find out how they felt about it. If there are any problems that you might need to nip in the bud before you move on to anything else. You don't want to wait till the survey comes to find out that there was a problem. But also it helped me in a huge way, because I was able to hear them say a lot of things that led me to success stories. Yeah. So I was able to get a lot of information about success stories back then too. And I had to do I shouldn't say it that way. I wrote success stories for all 7 of the states back then. I used to go to the New England states. I would go out and interview companies. So I was on the road doing that. And then I was, then I got to join the workforce group and changed. I did a lot of 101s and trainings and things as I progressed in the company. I learned more and got to do things, but then I went to the workforce team and learned a whole bunch of other things, which was great because I got to work with people and helping educate them about manufacturing and helping them get into manufacturing jobs.
So it sounds like flexibility and adaptability have been your friends.
Yeah, and that makes employability.
So tell me, what's your passion at work? What's your favorite thing about your job?
I like not having to do the same thing every day. I like being with, being involved with different people, different projects. I've been blessed with the opportunity to create things that didn't exist before. Mm-hmm. Projects, products as they were needed, and that's been awesome. I love working with, right now, being a people person, it's very difficult not to be with all of you. It's mm-hmm. difficult to be separated, and you just feel like you lost a part of yourself. You've lost that camaraderie. So I miss that. I miss that internally and externally, with not being able to go out and see the schools and see the people. It's nice to see you, but I'm not seeing you. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
So.
Yep. All right. Well then, how about in your personal life?
Oh.
Uh-oh.
No, right now I am sitting in a labor of love. We just finished a 2-year project where we added on to our home. So I've been tiling and painting and sanding and doing all sorts of things, hanging by my toes. Finally, that's done. I have always loved being creative in any,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be, you know, pen to paper painting, but something. And I love the outdoors. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to do much camping, but we are tent campers. We like to rough it when we rough it. And so I like working outdoors. I like the plants. I like the animals. It is almost October, and we have pets here, including I have a fish pond with lots of large fish. Now, for a moment of silence, I lost my koi this summer to a lightning storm, but he was about 12 years old and weighed over 40 pounds. And we have, when we built our fish pond, the fish that we got were goldfish. They weren't big. But being that I was naive at that point in time and did not realize that fish grow to the size of what you put them in, we ended up with some honking big fish, and they are too big to stay outside during the winter. So we have what we call it's like the running of the bulls. It's the running of the fish. Carry some of them like footballs because they can't fit in the buckets, and we have to run them down cellar into a giant tank that we have that's about 1,000 gallons that's in the cellar. So we do that, and then in the spring we bring them back out. But yes, the biggest guy is gone, but we have some goldfish that are probably, you know, 8 to 10 years old, and they're a good 15 inches. You know, they're good sized fish too. Got about 60 of them. 60.
That's amazing.
I get in there with my waders and I have to collect them all. And there's always babies that I don't know about that, you know. So we have chickens, we have dogs, we have cats. I love my pets. I love my family. That's me.
All right. Good enough. Good enough. So we're coming towards the end of this little information gathering session that we're doing here. And what I would like for you to do is if you could tell us 3 things about yourself, 2 of them that are true and 1 that is made up. And then, you know, in a later date, we're all going to try to guess at which is the made up one.
All righty then. Let's see. I scored the highest in the nation. I can't even talk. Highest in the nation on the Iowa test. I was named after a woman who did toilet paper commercials. And I am a blue ribbon winner in candy making.
Wow, I love those, Karen. Those ones are really interesting. Thank you so much for that.
No problem.
And thank you for taking some time today and talking with me and, you know, sharing more about your background with everybody. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Lise. You too.